Hey guys, Phil Hoken from Reversaru here, and welcome to the first video of the Syncaru build. And so we've got a 1986 van, it's a two-wheel drive, pop-top camper, and it's an absolute shitbox. I got it for $2,000 Aussie, which is around about maybe $1,300 USD. So yeah, it's not awesome, but anything that needs to be fixed, we'll fix it, so we're not too worried about that. And so what we plan to do is take it from two-wheel drive to all-wheel drive using the full Subaru drivetrain, and we've created a subframe, which is a hybrid subframe, which is where the word Syncaru comes from. I just mashed the two words together, Syncro, because I always wanted one. So mashed Synchro and Subaru, came up with Syncaru, so that's the name. But this is the Syncaru subframe, where the rear half is genuine Syncro. It bolts in to the genuine Syncro here, and then we custom modified the front end, and yeah, to adapt for the R180 flipped WRX differential, and it will also fit the R160 differential, which is from the Liberty and the Impreza, Forester, things like that. This one here is LSD. The gearbox we've got for it is fully rebuilt. It's also got an LSD in it with a 4.44 final drive, and it's a 5MT, so it's 5-speed manual. It's going to be beautiful. It's dual range, so you've got a full set of 5 gears in the normal range gears, and then you click it into low gear and you've got a full set of low range gears as well. So look, if all goes to plan, it's going to be an awesome drive. It'll be an awesome build, and we're glad that we could take you along for the journey. So in this first episode, we'll be taking you through clearancing the tunnel being the tunnel where the tail shaft goes. So we're going to clearance the rear chassis area, and then up under the vehicle, take the fuel tank out, take the front suspension out. There's a whole lot of work to do, and we're happy to be able to take you on the journey. So in this video today, we'll get up to hanging and getting the differential dummied up in the vehicle, and we'll show you how we made the brackets. We handmade all these brackets, and where we chopped the frame, how we chopped the frame, why we chopped the frame, and why everything is positioned where it is. And yeah, we're just stoked to be able to take you on the journey, and yeah, hope you enjoy. So here's a bit of an overview of the Syncaru subframe we've designed. So the Syncaru subframe, essentially what it does is allows a two-wheel drive Vanagon, like the vehicle in the background. It allows that vehicle to be taken to all-wheel drive using the full Subaru drivetrain. So in that carrier at the moment is an R180 WRX LSD. So that's out of a 2013 model. And we handmade these brackets here. In episode 2, we show you how we centered the diff and how we designed this carrier and the subframe, and we handmade these brackets here as well. Again, in episode 2, we go over that, and then this ties into the spare wheel bracket. So the other thing we'll go over is some of these brackets at the back here. The rear half of this carrier is genuine Syncro, and the front half of the carrier, or the subframe, has been custom designed. And so the cool thing about these holes here for the main brackets, in the T3 two-wheel drive, there's already holes in the chassis that are a provision for these bolts to bolt in to the chassis of a two-wheel drive. So this essentially now bolts straight up under that vehicle using some genuine Syncro parts. So that's one of the main brackets here. These brackets here are for the protection bars that run parallel to the tail shaft, and then we've got the genuine Syncro arm coming out of the bottom. Still, this here bolts into the lower control arm bracket of the T3, and then we had to step this so that we could make room for the CV shafts. And then you can see here we've got a flipped diff cover, and that's because we had to raise the oil level. The oil level we had to raise just so it sat in the bottom of this channel at all times, because usually in a Liberty or a Forester, this is up the other way, and then it would put these two plugs in the wrong position. So we've now got the drain plug at the bottom and the filler plug we've raised a little bit. So in other words, look, you can't just flip the other original differential cover. And then the rotation, the reason you have to flip the differential is because this the tail shaft spins this way, and with the differential in its normal position, if we turn the tail shaft this way, the wheels would turn reverse. That's the front of the car up there. The wheels would turn reverse. But then if you flip the differential, and that means it's still running on the correct side of the tooth, on the drive side, not the coast side, and then this still spins that way, but because the differential's flipped, now it gives drive to go forward rather than backwards. So that's a bit of an overview of the Syncaru subframe that takes the two-wheel drive Vanagon to all-wheel drive. All right, so this is the reduction gearbox that's been brought out by Reversaru, and this is how we'll be reversing the drive of the 5-speed manual dual range transmission that we have. So it's a pretty simple operation. The input shaft of our RGBs, or the reduction gearbox, is here, and it will connect to the output shaft of the transmission. And as you can see here, as the transmission spins the input shaft one way, the output shaft spins the opposite. And this here would go to your CV, out to your wheel hub. So look, the whole reason the Syncaru bus was developed or dreamed up was to test these, to put them to the test. We're going to see if we can break them. We will see the weakest point. We'll see how strong the teeth are, see how strong and durable and long-lasting the bearings are, and yeah, really put them to the test. So make sure you keep tuning into the episodes, and we'll update you on the breakages or the fixes that we come up with. But on that point, breakages are never the problem. The best companies of the world will have breakages, but it's how they fix them, and they make sure their fix is bulletproof, and then they make sure they deal with the customer the best they can. So we're not too scared of breakages. They happen, but what we are interested in is making this absolutely bulletproof and only bringing it to market if we can actually get it super reliable. So look, in these episodes, that's what you'll find out. You'll find out if they break in two, or if we can climb the steepest mountain. But either way, it'll be a bit of a journey and it'll be fun. So a bit more information. These are actually a 1-to-1 ratio. The reason we've done that is because the R180 differential up the front of the Syncaru bus is a 4.44 final drive ratio, and so is the transmission. So we didn't want to change the drive or the ratio at the transmission. We wanted that to stay the same. So while these are reduction gearboxes, this particular set in the Syncaru bus is 1-to-1, but keep in mind, we'll bring out many different ratios once this comes to market. So once again, don't miss the episodes, and yeah, enjoy. I just wanted to take a quick video to explain what I was saying about the genuine differential cover. So this is the genuine differential cover of the R180 or the R180 Diff that we've used out of the WRX. Now, when you flip the differential, it'll look like that. All right, so the bowl now sits at the bottom and the flat part goes to the top, where it's usually the other way in the Subaru. So you'd flip the differential, and then you wouldn't leave the case upside down, because that's where I was saying it's all in the wrong spot. You would then flip this that way to sit up against the flip diff. But then, what I was trying to explain before, which may not have made a lot of sense, is that then this filler plug height is way too low. So it still sits, so the drain plug would still be in the right spot. The filler plug is quite low, which would bring it down, look, to around, I'll just guess, to around here, where you can see we want the oil level. You can see on there, we want the oil level to continue to sit in this channel to have oil in the diff pinion bearing. So look, I hope that hope that made sense. Yeah, but look, it will help. The oil level obviously there will help keep that lubricated. And then if you think of this too, the other thing that is in our favor, as the vehicle's driving forward, this is the front of the car. So as the vehicle's driving forward, the inertia will want to push the oil back towards the pinion bearing anyway, and anything uphill, it'll do the same thing. So that's our advantage as well. But look, this is real world testing of a lot of theories, people saying that, look, it could be too full of oil, and the breather, which is up the top here, the breather could, you know, just constantly either block up or spurt oil, or the, you know, oil level might be wrong and you don't get enough oil to the pinion bearing. But this is why we're testing on this vehicle. This whole vehicle, the Syncaru bus, is a test bus. It's testing not only the RGBs, it's not testing just the you know, the gears in the RGBs. It's not testing the brackets in the RGBs. It's actually testing these brackets here, but it's testing, yeah, oil levels. It's testing this theory. It's testing this differential up the front. It's testing a whole lot of stuff. So yeah, throughout the episodes, we're going to keep you updated and let you know how all this goes. So on the topic of using the R180 LSD up the front of a Vanagon, there's, you know, you look online or you talk to different people and there's a lot of different theories. And so because this is an LSD, people are saying that it won't, you know, it may cause issues when you're turning and cornering, and other people say it won't. And, you know, one guy who's very switched on mentioned that he doesn't believe it will cause an issue because they don't, you know, the genuine R180 LSDs don't ramp up like the aftermarket ones, so you don't get that harsh binding, like, so accelerating around corners shouldn't be an issue. So look, whenever there's conflicting information, I always just go Mythbusters style and say, okay, let's sort this out once and for all and actually put it in and actually test it. So if that doesn't work, we've got an idea around a locker for this that we can maybe implement. But yeah, stay tuned on these episodes and we'll let you know how it all goes. All right, so to give you a bit of a visual of where we're headed, this is the transmission in about the correct spot that it'll be. These portals are a little bit offset, meaning the CV shaft will come out perfect alignment with the hub. Then you've got the tail shaft, we'll clearance the chassis and the cross members for the tail shaft, and then you've got the Syncaru subframe that bolts into the two-wheel drive to take a two-wheel drive to all-wheel drive. So that's going to bolt up in there using some genuine Synchro parts and the Syncaru subframe. All right, well in episode 1 you'll see where we need to clearance. We need to clearance that cross member where the original bracket usually goes. We need to take out the fuel tank. We need to disassemble and take out all of the front end, the lower control arms, the struts, the brakes. So we'll do that. We may not show you all of that because that's quite simple and there's other YouTube videos, but yeah, that's what we will do. And we'll take the spare wheel out. We'll take the spare wheel cover down, or the brace and the bracket, and then we'll show you where to clearance. So we'll be clearancing these cross members here that the lower control arm brackets go into. And so we'll cut some shapes into those. We'll show you how to cut the shapes. And then by the end of this episode, we'll have the diff dummied up and hung in there, and you'll see how all that's done. So all you do on this side is you find the center of this bolt here and the center of this bolt on the steering rack, and then find the center. So you measure between the two bolts, then find the center and mark it, and then you just go 100 mil either side. And then after you get that out, we'll clean that up. And then this is just for clearance. So all you need to do is make sure it sits higher than where the diff is going to sit, so that the diff doesn't touch the frame at any point. So we've got the diff in its flipped position up in there. You can see it's still hitting here and here on these two, but we've cleared there. So we've done that one. Now we're going to do this one and then this one. So once again, we've cut a piece on an angle, made a cut on an angle, made another cut on an angle, and then we'll cut that piece out. And what we did is we just jacked the diff up and then got the general shape and went about 10 millimeters wider than the part of the diff that we're trying to clear, just so you make sure you clear it. And then you take that bit out, you clean all the edges up later, and then now we'll do this one. So once again, we found the center of just 2 bolts, so that one there and this one here. We found the center, jacked the diff up, and then measured where the diff was sort of going to sit, and then gave it another 10 mil out, and then just cut the angles, and then we'll cut now across the top here. So step 1 is to remove the upper and lower control arms and the radius rod, so it looks like this. And then step 2 would be to cut the shapes there, and that's where the metal reinforcement plates go. The general rule with fabrication whenever you cut any steel out of anywhere, especially on vehicles, it should really be replaced. So these have been made. These are just templates I made. I might put a photo up as well, but these are the templates I made so far. This one goes around the across the cross member and around the tail shaft. This one, or these other ones, go in their various places. So for instance, this one, it's going to be thicker at the top. It'll be a lot thicker through here, the final one. And as you can see there, that would go across there. I'm going to bring that up because I can come up quite high. So this part here will be a lot thicker, and it will probably even come up to about there somewhere. But yeah, I'm going to have 10mm holes here and then drill and then bolt that in. So that, because we've cut so much here, it'll just strengthen that right up. And then this one here, this one will go around the tail shaft. So that's the final design. We'll still do a little bit more, we'll curve the edges and put a bit of a radius on those. We'll radius these corners a bit more here, but that's pretty much the final design. So you can see we've got M10 holes going through the 3 plates. There's 1 plate here, 2nd plate here, 3rd plate there. The plates are made out of steel, a lot thicker through the top because that's where the strength needs to be. And then all of these 3 plates will work off each other in terms of strength, because there's a piece of thread bar, or 2 pieces of thread bar actually. That's just a bolt there holding it for now, just as we dummy it up. But there'll be thread bar going the whole way through, thread bar here going the whole way through, and then same on the other side. It's 12.9 high tensile thread bar, M10 by 1.5 pitch, so it'll be super strong. They all work off each other, so they all help strengthen each other because we've done the cross tubes between them. And the other advantage with this is too, it actually strengthens, even if we don't cut this out, these T3s are having notorious for having a weak cross member here. And there's a company, I'm not sure who it is, but there's a company that brings out little stays that go from here back into here, because he's even got a video where someone's in the car turning the steering wheel with the wheels on the ground, and you can see this cross member, flexing. So regardless of, even cutting, that cross member's never all that sturdy in the first place. So this will really strengthen all that up through there. And then, if I didn't mention, these are steel plates, and we can always go a little bit thicker if we do some testing and feel that they're not strong enough, but that's where we're at for now. On the topic of strength on those cross members that we're cutting, I just want to show you a genuine Synchro. This is the front diff of a Synchro, and I just wanted to show you this, that on a genuine Synchro, that cross member that goes below the steering rack there is a lot higher anyway. Yes, it's a different shape, and yes, we've cut our one, but it does go up thin there anyway, so that's one thing. And then the second thing I thought I'd show you is that there's no other cross members across here at all. They just remove them on the Synchro altogether. So in terms of strength, so there's just no other cross members apart from the steering rack cross member. So they get rid of the cross members altogether, where we actually retain the cross members, and then just here where the torch is, we actually weld a bracket on top of the subframe there of the Synchro that bolts to the genuine lower control arm bracket in a T3 2-wheel drive Vanagon. So we keep two more cross members in the vehicle than what a Synchro does. So just to, shed some light on that strength issue about cross members being cut and things like that. I don't believe it's an issue, especially when we've plated them the way we have. And then to continue on with that, the guys that do Synchro conversions on 2-wheel drive Vanagons like this, when they do use the genuine subframe, they actually cut all these out to make room for the Synchro diff. So that goes, like that cross member goes to make room for the diff, as you just saw in that last video. So yeah, like I say, I think it's an absolute non-issue with what we've done and the strength that we've, replaced strength with those steel plates going across. Okay, so this mount usually goes here. We've brought it forward, kept it in the same orientation because it's offset. And then the centers between this hole and this hole here is 300 millimeters, the centers. And so from our center line, I've gone 150 millimeters there and 150 millimeters there. So I know where the center is. So the way we're planning on mounting the R180 WRX differential is having a subframe under here. And we're going to use a genuine Synchro subframe as the base of our design. So the genuine Synchro subframe bolts in here. So yeah, this is interesting. So the two-wheel drive vehicles came out with these two holes here, and that's exactly where the Synchro subframe bolts. So the Synchro subframe bolts here, and then it comes through, and instead of this, it bolts here as well. And then your radius rod bracket is part of the Synchro subframe. But on a two-wheel drive, the radius rod bracket is part of the sheet metal that's welded up here. So on a genuine Synchro, it's a little bit different. I've made a plate. If you have a look here, it's a captive plate. Can't get it out, but I'll maybe put a photo up. Captive plate with captive nuts on the end that you just slide in. You make a little cut here. We can plate that up later. We've made a little cut there, slide that through, and then that's where your subframe will sit. And with our proposed design, we'll cut the genuine Synchro subframe down so we don't have to use the radius rod bracket from the Synchro, because I don't want to have to unpick all that. And if we're bringing this out as a kit for people to buy, we want it to be as bolt-in as possible. So the people in the past that have taken these two-wheel drive vans and turned them into Synchros, you've actually got to take the Synchro subframe and then unpick all of this and take it out and cut it out, and we don't want to do that. So we're going to leave that there, graft the genuine Synchro subframe into the two-wheel drive, and then that will be sold as part of our kit when we do get it going. So I've found a subframe at a place down near Canberra in Australia, and I'm going to head down there now and grab it. He's selling it to me. The property's got hundreds and hundreds of V-dubs on it. So yeah, I'm pretty sure you'll like this next part of the video, driving through his property. Jeez.
Because they're all built after 89.
Yeah, right.
So you can only bring them in as a private import.
Well, I'm back from Canberra. It's a 5-hour drive down and a 5-hour drive back. So it's quite a big drive, but I'm back now. I started chopping straight away when I got back. That's the part we don't need. That's the front part of the Synchro subframe. So you can see where I've chopped it there, the two rails that usually go there. That's the radius rod bracket, or where the radius rod goes, the end that's adjustable. 6 bolts at the front there. They bolt to the Synchro chassis. So one step closer. Okay, when we're bolting the Synchro subframe up, we did need to cut off a tiny bit off these lower control arm brackets. I'll put another video up now, or a couple of photos, just to show you how much we had to take off. So this is the cut down Synchro front end that we've used. This is the these brackets here go to the standard lower control arm brackets in the T3 two-wheel drive. And then these goes to the chassis where there's already holes for this that were there factory ready for the Syncro subframe. So as you can see, we've taken a normal Syncro subframe, cut it down. If you're watching this after the fact, keep in mind that we are planning on remanufacturing this setup that we're making. So don't worry, you won't have to cut and weld and all that sort of stuff. We're doing that for you and testing it in this vehicle. And what we're up to now is we just need to take a bit of a scallop out of there for the nose of the front differential. That's the scallop that's been cut out, or the V. So that's so the front of the diff pinion can sort of, or the shape of the case of the diff pinion can go through there. And then here you'll see, this is a better shot than in the vehicle. You'll see where we've sort of had to step that down, and that's for the WRX, or we've used a WRX, but the Subaru drive shaft from the different front differential will come out to the arm. So that's why that's stepped like that. So that's it, partially capped. And now we'll cap those top ends. And then that should be good. So that's where it bolts there. And then that's the standard lower control arm bracket here of the two-wheel drive, which that bolts to. And then the genuine Synchro arm will come out of here. These we'll get rid of. They're the mount holes for the genuine Synchro diff we don't need. We'll keep these. They are brackets for support bars, I guess you'd call them, or protection bars for the tail shaft. The tail shaft runs in the middle, and then these bars run either side so that it stops anything bashing the tail shaft if you go over bumps and things like that. And then we've cut the V in. That's where the snout or the case for the diff pinion shaft goes. So yeah, looking good. Next thing we'll do is cut that on an angle. We'll do this up in the car and we'll show you, but we'll cut that on an angle, and then that will tie back in up to the spare wheel bracket. So we're now cutting the section out for the transmission to go through. We've gone for a 240mm section, and we've found the center just by going on the other side here. You can go from one cross member to another and then find the center mark, and then just measure 120mm out from each to give you the 240mm section to cut. So we've got the Synchro lower control arm in, obviously the lower ball joint, Synchro upright, Synchro strut or shock, whatever you want to call it, and a standard, this is non-power steering, but a standard steering rack from a T3 that comes out and bolts up to the knuckle. With the radius rod and sway bar link, we've got a genuine Synchro one here, because it all sits 50mm height difference to a standard. This is out of the T3. That's the standard two-wheel drive one that we had. We're cutting this part out of the arm, and then we'll weld it up onto here, and then we'll get that sort of stuff produced, but we're just mocking it up. We're just going to mock up where that will go on this, because it's the wrong angle. And then in the kit that we bring out, remember this is all just the first one we've ever done, but with the kit that we bring out, that'll be one piece. But this is just showing how we're going about it. All right, so update on the Syncaru. We have which is basically the Subaru Syncro, the Syncaru. So we've got the transmission just dummied up there. We've worked out that the output shaft of our portal or reverse drive reduction gearbox will come out there, which is lined up with the center of the hub. We've got the tail shaft dummied up just for now. There's plunge, well not plunge, but there's a slip yoke that can slip inside that seal. So there's movement there. There's also in this center bearing that compresses. So there's plunge there. And then we've got it bolted solid to the front differential, which is, and then you can see the axles coming out. And it's going to be hard to see, but it's spot on. Like that's the axle there. And you can see how straight that comes out. So we have had to dip that frame, but we'll just make a cover underneath, a bash plate if you want to call it that. And it's only 50mm lower than the standard Syncro there anyway. So it's not huge. For what you're gaining, that's not a huge issue. And if I haven't explained this already, we've taken a standard Syncro frame and cut it to how we want it. And the reason we've done that is because then we can tie this, and this will be in a later video, we can tie this up into this spare wheel carrier for strength. We'll have a mount for the diff here as well. And yeah, this way you can keep the beauty of doing it this way with our frame and our kit. Kit will come with this subframe, laser cut and weld it up, all in the right spot. So like I say, don't take too much notice of what's going on in front of you, but it means you can use your standard two-wheel drive. This is standard two-wheel drive Vanagon T3. You can use your standard brake calipers, and you can use your standard steering rack. So it takes out all the hassle of where this Syncro lower control arm, and that's a genuine Syncro lower control arm, where that mounts into the back bracket into the genuine Syncro is the same, but we've mounted then it to this original two-wheel drive lower control arm bracket. That's that bolt going through there. So I'll zoom in so you can sort of see. All that to say that the points between, like there's only maybe 100mm between two massive M14 bolts and another 100mm before it goes up to the original lower control arm bracket. So anyway, a bit of an idea of how we're going and where it's up to and how it will all work.